Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm sorry my voice is a little bit raspy today. I am overcoming a cold and some laryngitis. I've done my best to drink some water and try to prepare for this video. But I did want to put a video out today because, well, Harley-Davidson announced the 2021 Pan America, which is their adventure bike. It's been long anticipated, long talked about. And what's funny is I'm coming to you guys with a bit of a, I guess, disappointment in this announcement. Not the bike. I think the bike is actually fantastic, but the format of the announcement. Now, last month, Harley-Davidson did their first ever public unveil of their 2021 bikes. They withheld the Pan America to do it as a separate event, which I kind of thought was going to be an event. It wasn't. But the 2021 model announcements that they did last month were heavily produced, and I actually defended that, saying that I understood with the COVID situation, and they didn't really have a whole lot of product to announce. So they kind of just did an overall production piece, introduced some bikes that they made some minor changes to, and just put it out there for the world to see. I was anticipating a little bit more out of the Pan America launch. And before I jump into, I guess, my critique of this event, if you want to call it that, I have no problem with celebrity endorsement on products. There's a lot of people in the comments on my videos that I see that are against the Jason Momoa connection with Harley-Davidson. But I do think that with any of these product launches, especially something that's going to be so pivotal and important to land as the Pan America to Harley-Davidson, that if you're going to do that, run a couple minutes and then jump into the meat and potatoes on a stage and talk about that product and why it is so important and all of the amazing things about that product. That's not what happened here with Harley-Davidson's announcement. Now, what I think Harley-Davidson did in this unveiling was that they tried to do too much, and in a sense, I don't think they did enough. I think it just got kind of lost any sort of sense of direction. Now, what you had was a 25-minute and 44-second production, and the breakdown of that was weird to me. You had the first 2 minutes and 45 seconds of a Jason Momoa opening, and it was okay. I had no problem with it. But after that 2 minutes and 45 seconds, now's your time to dive into that product and just hit it with the wow factor. They went into more of an Harley-Davidson original film is literally what they called it, with Brad Richards, who is the VP of design, and Jochen Zeitz, the CEO of Harley-Davidson. And this HD film just came off to me as kind of like weird. It's okay for your bike to get dirty, and justifying the product in its position with the Harley-Davidson line. Like, we know Harley guys don't like their bikes to get dirty, but it's okay for your bike to get dirty. What's interesting to me is Harley doesn't seem to understand that the more production you put into something, the less authentic it appears. And when you're talking about a brand like Harley-Davidson, authenticity is all you really have. I mean, that's your connection to the customer, is your authentic brand. And when you produce these overly produced pieces, it's just not authentic. So the way that I see it was that the 2 minute and 45 second mark to 4 minutes and 40 seconds of Brad Richards and Jochen Zeitz was kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. So you get into the 4 minute and 40 second mark and you think, okay, now we're going to get into specs. Let's see what this bike is all about. You don't. It's 4 minutes and 40 seconds to 13 minutes and 20 seconds. You get into Harley history, and they kind of introduced it as saying, you know, some people say we're late to the game, but we are the game. And they mentioned that we were selling globally in 1920, and they go into the lineage of the Harley-Davidsons in World War. You see all these old war footage of bikes riding off-road and all that. Well, that to me was almost more embarrassing, because you're basically saying that for 100 years, people were taking your bikes off-road, and here you are 100 years later with your Pan America. They just did a lot of justifying for almost 10 minutes of the history of Harley-Davidson and why the Pan America makes sense. It just, to me, just was over-explaining, excuses as to why it took so long, and then overly justifying the product, as opposed to spending that 10 minutes going really into the meat and potatoes of what the product is, the specs, and really just trying to hit home, let the product speak for itself. The moment that you start over explaining or excusing why it took so long or justifying your position in the market, it kind of comes off as over disclaiming the product. And in my opinion, it almost kind of cheapened what I think is actually an awesome product. Again, I think the Pan America is an awesome bike. I just don't think they did a great job of selling it today. That's kind of my opinion. Then we get into 13 minutes and 30 seconds to 15 minutes and 48 seconds. So another 2-minute chunk of really just the design and how and why it fits into Harley-Davidson. So again, to me, they're explaining the design, which is fine, but it just, you're at 15 minutes into the video and haven't even really gotten onto the product and any of the meat and potatoes of the product. So it was 15 minutes and 48 seconds where you get into the meat and potatoes of this 25-minute presentation. Stressed member of the frame for the engine, which is a big deal. That's significant. They talk about being lighter weight. They don't mention the weight. And then I'm thinking, okay, we're into some specs. Let's kind of get into the real specs of this product. March this thing out on a stage and show me all of the innovative things that Harley-Davidson has done and take ownership and pride in this new product. Nope, they backtrack into more B-roll and engineering speak that wasn't even necessarily about the product, but just the product and how it fit with Harley-Davidson. So it went from 16 minutes and 37 seconds to 18 minutes and 19 seconds of engineering the testing facility here in Arizona and what I would call like a B-roll dump, just a bunch of product shots of the bike riding around in the desert. It was just over a minute and a half of product specs. They mentioned the powertrain. I don't think even said Revolution Max, but they mentioned the powertrain having a max speed of 135 miles per hour, being incredibly hot off the line, that this is a revolutionary power plant. They did tease the 1250 Cruiser, and then they get into adaptive ride height and lighting. And that's when I was kind of like, all right, here we go. Let's get into it. Nope. They dipped out of the spec part and went straight into parts and accessories. So they never mentioned the liquid-cooled portion of the bike. They didn't mention chain drive versus drive shaft, why they went the way they went. They don't talk about tank size. How long can you take this thing on an adventure without having to fuel up? They mentioned ride modes and some of the other fluff pieces, but they never got into what those ride modes were, how many there are. So you don't really know what the ride modes are. There's no mention of the TFT display and how that integrates with Apple CarPlay. Does it? From the spec sheets I see online, they don't mention it. Does it have Android Auto? You have apps for off-roading and things that you very much would want to have in an off-road environment. So then they go into 19 minutes, 47 seconds to 21:56 of parts and accessories, bags, lights. Their partnership with Revit, which I think is interesting for off-road gear. That's all great. But then it basically all just finished out with 21 minutes, 56 seconds to the 25:44, which was the end of what I call more fluff. Basically, Brad Richards overlooking this beautiful sunset. And when I see that, I know there's a camera crew there. I know there's probably support vehicles. If there's not, I think there is. That's part of the problem. Perception becomes reality. And it just seems to me like Brad Richards probably didn't ride that bike off to some sort of unforeseen cliff edge and just stumble across some sunset. It was probably something where somebody went out, did a bunch of scouting, found that location. Either maybe he rode out there at a sunset, but I'm envisioning helicopters flying out to this location with your guy, dropping him on set, having a production crew of 6 to 8 people standing there and capturing this beautiful sunset while he hits his couple lines, and then going out to this, panning out to Jochen Zeitz and him sitting around a campfire, again, incredibly produced, joking about the product and things like that. So it just doesn't seem authentic to me, and that's where I feel like Harley-Davidson is really missing the mark, is authentic content. It just all seems very produced and overkill and missing the mark, in my opinion. So again, just put the bike on a stage, walk around it, even if it's just you and socially distanced with cameramen and not even having a lot of members of press there, whatever the case may be, and talk about the product. Let the product speak for itself after you explain everything that went into this bike, what it has, and then the product will either sell or it won't. But all the production stuff, there's time for commercials, and the announcement of the product shouldn't be, in my opinion, just a commercial. So with that being said, guys, this is my initial take on the unveiling of the 2021 Pan America. I think the bike is awesome. I really do. I'm not a huge fan of the presentation of such an important product. So that is my take on it. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.